Hello and good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the 11th annual reInvent. Super excited and honored that you're all here. How many people, this is the first reInvent? Just a quick show of hands. Oh, wow. And how many people are repeat reInvent attendees? They've been here before? Okay, it's like 90 and 5, and 5% people didn't raise their hands. So I'm assuming it's the lunch. Let's just assume that. That's always a safe choice to do that. And you know, there's an old saying that if you've had a really good lunch and you're low in energy, the best thing you can do is talk about cloud migrations. So jokes aside, one of the best things you can do for your organization is cloud migrations and modernization, and we're going to talk about that today. My name is Faraz Shafiq. I'm the worldwide head of product management and operations for our migrations and modernization business at AWS. We'll also hear from Krishna Srinivasan, who's the director for Cloud Architecture and DevOps at United Airlines, talking about their journey to the cloud. So, you know, one of the things that I always like to talk about is just sort of understanding if you were doing a project, if you're doing a task, how many people, you know, when you complete it or you're near completion, you're saying, hey, there's probably a better way to do this. There's faster, there's quicker ways to do this. Right? Almost every person that raises their hand will say, yes, if I complete a project or task, there's probably something in retrospective that we learn, especially if it's a new project, right? If it's a repeat same task, sure, you've already figured it out. But for new projects, it gets a little bit trickier. The simple analogy is like if you're building a house, for example, like you need to know how many rooms you're going to add. You don't say, hey, builder, why don't you build the foundation and I'll tell you how many rooms we're going to put in later, right? So it's a process in which you really need to understand the end outcome, what you're trying to do, where you're striving for. And so one of the biggest advantages that the cloud offers is the flexibility, and that's a pretty key thing that we'll talk about today. MAP stands for AWS's Migration Acceleration Program. It's our flagship migration and modernization program for transformations of any size. You know, the unique advantage that we have at AWS is we've helped thousands of customers do large-scale transformations, and actually tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of customers do transformations at a smaller scale. So we've taken those learnings and we've created it into a structured program that we call the Migration Acceleration Program, or MAP. So we'll talk about that and what MAP offers. The big thing to understand is that this is going to drive real business outcomes. So we really want your cloud strategy to focus on your business outcomes. It's not about data centers. It's not about IT. Those are critical components to it, but the key thing is business outcomes. In fact, we see customers across every single imaginable industry, geography, and segment migrate and modernize to AWS. And it doesn't matter if you are a 100-year-old company, you know, that's delivering core infrastructure services, or you are a newcomer like Airbnb that's built on the cloud and will always remain on the cloud. Consumer trends, behaviors, industry, everything changes. We know that there's a cycle. And so the big thing is how quickly can you adopt to that cycle and deliver your, let's just say, changing business strategy and business outcomes. You could be Disney, that's a leader in creating original content along with so many other services and offerings like their theme parks. But with changing consumer trends, they had to create a new streaming service called Disney+. And so another great example on how you can very quickly use the power of cloud to create new offerings and new services. Another example is Dish. You know, Dish has been a seasoned ISP or internet services provider. They provide broadband connectivity nationwide, and now they're realizing that we need to get into the wireless side, and so they're building a brand new 5G network from the ground up using the power of AWS. And so we have examples across, you know, every single industry, geography, and segment. And the big thing to understand is, you know, cloud migrations and modernization, they're not strategic advantage focused anymore. It's really becoming fundamental. They're core to your business strategy, and it's important to understand that. And you know, one of the things that we see, and this is a study from Gartner that says, by 2023, 500 million new applications will be built. And this is, to put in context, this is the same as the number of applications built for the last 40 years. And so this is saying that, the new pace of innovation, development, all of that powered by the cloud is going to be quite exciting. This means new products, new services, new ways to do business. One of the best examples is NASDAQ. NASDAQ has been a hallmark of the stock exchange. They provide financial and market insights data, and they announced that they're going to move to AWS to make sure they're providing their consumers, their end consumers, with the right information at the right time. And so we're quite excited about some of these changes. And we have some great customer examples, which are great success stories among many. General Electric, one of the largest global companies focused on industrial manufacturing, among many other industries like oil and gas, energy, power and utilities, they're a great example. They basically said, what business are we in? And when you think about oil and gas, for example, you're talking about their energy efficiency, they're talking about renewables, they're talking about their physical assets. And so they realized that we're not in the business of managing IT infrastructure. Their goal is to make sure that they can focus on their energy investments. And so a big part of that was migrating 500 applications over to AWS so they could really free up those resources, get the cost savings. They reduced their data center footprint by almost 87%, realized a 52% cost savings that they could redeploy. And so the big thing was understanding they're not in the business of managing IT people. They're not in the business of running large-scale data centers. They're really an energy company when it comes to GE oil and gas. One of my favorite examples is Samsung. So Samsung is a household name. They are one of the world's largest telecommunication and technology companies. They are the world's largest smartphone manufacturer. And so for them, they're running this large, complex global supply chain where information is super, super critical. And getting the right information at the right time, with the right frequency, with the right accuracy is super critical. And I think we all know with the disruptions in supply chain, this is ever so important. So Samsung migrated 1.1 billion users, billion with a B, from over 3 continents, and they were able to not only reduce their bill by close to half, but they saw this massive reduction in the time they could actually run critical queries, get those insights, get that information. And some of their critical systems could actually now give them real-time information, close to real-time information with 60 millisecond latency by moving their database over to Amazon Aurora. And so there's plenty of examples out there, and we have tons of resources online. But we sort of went back and said, what are some of the big things? Why do customers actually migrate and modernize? And these are some of the examples that you'll see. Many of you would be thinking about going global quickly, having a similar global footprint. Some customers have a big focus on next generation technologies, things like IoT, Internet of Things, ML, AI, all of these hype words that we think about. Others just want to do what GE did, saying we're not in the business of running data centers. We could be a healthcare company, and my goal as a healthcare company is to serve my patients in the best way possible. So you're focused on the core differentiators for your business. There's a big focus on business continuity as well. As we've seen with the geopolitical situation in macroeconomics, we know that supply chain disruptions and many other type of disruptions can come in many unexpected ways. And so having a strong disaster recovery / business continuity is critical. And one of my favorites is agility. A lot of customers want to be able to do things faster because they're realizing that the businesses, the trends, the competitors are changing as well. If you ask a car manufacturer 5 or 7 years ago where their competition is going to come from, no one would say Tesla. But suddenly it just changes the game because how you think about products and how you think about technology massively changes. And we're also seeing a big focus on sustainability. More often than ever before, we're seeing customers talk about sustainability as a core pillar. Amazon announced the climate pledge in 2019. We're very excited about that. that is our promise to be net carbon zero by 2040. And one of the things that we did was have a huge focus on our own infrastructure and own footprint. And so AWS actually is able to run the same infrastructure that you're managing at 88% lower carbon footprint. Why? Through our energy efficient chipsets like Graviton 2, Graviton 3, the scale at which we operate, we're able to offer higher utilization, and then obviously our commitment to renewable energy sourcing. So, we owe a lot to our customers, and we obviously went back and understood, specifically what are the benefits that really help them achieve the goals. And so one of the things that we were quite surprised to see is that these benefits are very material and very real. In fact, the average cost savings that customers achieve through cloud migrations was 31%. This is an average number. Many of our customers that did many other techniques like right-sizing and moving to modernization services actually saw upwards of 50% of cost savings. Then it's 62% more efficient IT infrastructure. This is all about getting more from your same resources. You want to get the maximum amount of output, maximum amount of resources, maximum amount of sort of call it like the efficiency of your technical talent as well as the infrastructure. So you're able to do things better, quicker, faster. And one of my favorites is agility. By moving to the cloud, you see you can expect an average of 75% increase in agility. And agility is all about responding to change faster. Agility is sort of call it the superpower that'll allow you to be flexible. If you go back to my prior example on building a house with the foundation, foundations are hard to change. Once you've built your foundation, it's very difficult to address because hardware is expensive. It's not an on and off switch. You have certain people, you have business logic built in, so all of that is built in, and so adjusting that becomes hard. And so one of the big advantages of cloud is that you're able to respond to changes faster. And anytime there's a shift in your business strategy, instead of your technology infrastructure becoming a barrier, it actually helps you accelerate that strategy. So it becomes a catalyst for transformation. And agility offers you the ability to focus on your business differentiators, your key business drivers that really help you achieve a lot more. In fact, we believe that agility is one of the reasons why we as Amazon are able to respond to change faster. In fact, when we do a simple benchmark study, we're able to do things much, much quicker through our innovation and agility focus. We have upwards of 10,000 plus releases that we ship every single day across our complex, large-scale global footprint. And faster automation, mean time to recovery, better sort of call it operational efficiency, all of these things are one of the reasons why we're able to move fast, and it's all based on agility. And so by offering the deepest, broadest set of services, we're able to create those, call it Lego blocks, that allow you to run your businesses more effectively. And I think no one says it better than Andy Jassy, who's our CEO of Amazon. And it's basically two things. If you just simply boil it down, it's that if you want to innovate and you want to be more agile, you should have the ability to try a lot of different things. And the cost of experimentation should be low. What that means is you don't have to get things right the first time, because that usually doesn't happen. But you need to get to the right answer in the fastest and most economical way possible. And so speed matters in business. And by reducing the cost of experimentation, you'll be able to try different things. Let's just say you try 10 things, 9 of them fail. If the cost of failure is too high, that means you're really going to create a material damage. But if the cost of experimentation or failure is low, then those 9 failures are really just learnings. And then suddenly you can put those in your 10th one. And once it's successful, then you can quickly scale. Let me just use a simple example that'll bring it to life. Before joining AWS, I was a senior ID leader in many different industries, including healthcare and telecom. And so if I wanted to do, as a chief digital officer, I wanted to create a new offering or try something new, what would I have to do? I'd have to buy new hardware, get budgeting, talk to supply chain. understand all the different vendors that have all the different offerings, understand the resourcing. Is it going to be in-house? Is it going to be external? I'll have to look at a training module. So you sort of understand that this becomes at least a few months, if not a year-long journey, just to try certain things out. How does the cloud flip it out? At AWS, let's just say you want to try something new in machine learning. You literally just click on SageMaker, launch a new instance, and start building models. If it doesn't work, you shut that down, build another cluster, and start again. And that is the power of cloud, where literally your cost of experimentation, cost of your, call it, prototyping becomes so significantly lower. In fact, many of our customers that try different things with new services, they actually don't even exceed the free tier. So you can try and trial many different new services almost at zero cost, and then once it works, you start scaling. So we're just going to do a quick poll. There's multiple options. You can take out your camera, scan the QR code. You may have to zoom in from your phone. If you have the AWS Events app, you can also go down at the bottom right. There's going to be a More. And if you click on More, there's going to be a live polling option. So again, either way, you can go to the QR code, put the code 889726. And so the question really is, what, in your opinion, are an organization's biggest barriers to moving to the cloud? It's complexity, skills or talent gaps, unclear business use cases, or organizational readiness or dynamics. We'll give it about 30 seconds, 20, 30 seconds. Okay, maybe 10 more seconds. See a lot of people still building. Great, so we've got results on. And people watching on Content Hub as well online, feel free to vote as well. If you're still voting, the results will automatically populate. So as sort of expected, it's across the board. It looks like organizational readiness or dynamics is the fan favorite, then skills or talent gaps, complexity, and then finally unclear business case. No surprising results. Let's move on. But one of the big things that we at AWS have learned is there's no one right or wrong answer. It really depends on your specific scenario, your specific situation, your industry, and more importantly, probably the most importantly, is your people and culture. In fact, when we look at the transformations that were not as successful, the underlying reason by far, the biggest underlying reason was people and culture. And so one of the unique advantages of AWS is having this very unique vantage point in helping so many customers and seeing so many successful transformations and also helping with some of those, let's just say, stalled or unsuccessful transformations. We've learned a lot. And this is some of the guidance that we see across the board from just 1,000+ large-scale transformations. The first one, no surprise, is culture. The biggest thing that you can do to make sure that your initiatives around transformation are solid is to have and secure very strong executive sponsorship. You need to be able to answer the question, who is the champion for this transformation? And if one name does not come to mind, and that name's not part of the, call it the executive influence, then we see that as a big, big barrier. So literally one of the biggest things that you can do is someone from the senior leadership team be part of that cultural change, be part of that people and process change. And that's one of the biggest things that you can do. Second one is all about goals. And this is where, I can probably offer one really good advice. Don't set technology or technical goals. Those are milestones, a very, very key difference. If we believe that cloud is helping you forward and advance your business transformation, then your goals should be focused on your business outcomes as well. In order to achieve those business outcomes, you certainly might have to exit data center, adopt Kubernetes, go serverless, look at microservices. use SageMaker. You might have to do many different tools and many different things to achieve those goals, but those are technical milestones. Your goal should still be business-oriented. Like Disney, the goal is, I want to launch Disney Plus by this timeline, and I want to have a seamless consumer experience. For Dish, the goal is, I want to launch a nationwide 5G network that's built completely on the cloud from the ground up. For Nasdaq, the goal is, I want to launch my finance and markets data over to the cloud so that I can reduce the amount of latency it takes for consumers to get and find the right information. And to do those, they set very clear technical milestones. So set bold outcome-focused goals. You want to set aggressive goals. You want to set goals that you can then basically bring them top-down across your organization. The third one, and probably really critical one when you think about execution, is you have to build momentum and you have to avoid stall. There's a word for this that we use quite extensively, and it's called analysis paralysis. What that means is a lot of customers, they have very, very, let's just say, strong excitement around these initiatives. But these are multi-year long initiatives, right? Obviously, changing foundations or changing something that you've been doing for a very long time is difficult. And it's not like you're moving to the cloud overnight because it takes multiple years and you still have your day job. How do you stay engaged? How do you keep your teams engaged? And how do you focus on making those critical steps so that you're still managing your business effectively while you're actually modernizing and moving to the cloud? And so the way to do this is learn by doing. Instead of just planning and planning and planning and designing, you learn by doing. Do rapid POCs. Do things at a smaller scale. Use techniques that can de-risk your cloud migrations and modernization. Things like automation, which we'll talk about in just a minute. Things like bringing in the right partner that can help you with that migration or modernization. And so we have a wide variety of, call it offerings and support and services in which we can help remove that stall and avoid that analysis paralysis. And finally, and a really critical one, is take a portfolio-driven approach. What that means, and that's a critical one, so we'll spend a couple minutes on this. Not every project, not every infrastructure is the same. So you really, instead of boiling down the ocean and saying, hey, I'm going to move my entire infrastructure over in the first batch, in my first wave, that's not the right way to do it. You really need to understand, within your portfolio, what are your key business drivers? What are those applications and what are those infrastructure-related decisions that will yield the most ROI? And so you start with those ones. Because if you start with a very wide lens, what's going to happen? All the other issues that I mentioned, analysis paralysis, not having the right goals, they start kicking in and you go in different directions. The best way to do it is identify those small wins and then move forward. In fact, one of the ways that we think about is you really want to use the full spectrum of migration and modernization patterns. And so if you take a look at a typical IT portfolio, there's always going to be stuff that you can just lift and shift. And we typically see roughly 50% in our analysis are just standard lift and shift use cases. This means that applications that are productivity applications or commodity applications that, let's just say, don't have any rate of change. They're very low rate of change. They're not evolving. They're not business differentiating. Instead of focusing on them on modernizing or moving them to serverless, you could just literally lift and shift. Start getting those cost benefits. And then as you get those cost benefits, you can redeploy those resources and benefits into modernizing. We see a 20% focus on SaaS or software as a service. SAP is a great example. Instead of managing your own infrastructure and your own SAP systems, you could simply use a SaaS version and deploy any type of application that you want that has a SaaS alternative. Again, these are applications that are, let's just say, medium rate of change. They're pretty understood. They're in a mature, call it, release. And so there's limited, call it, downside of going with a SaaS offering. And so you still get your core resources freed up, and you can still do that. 20% goes to modernization. These are your business-critical applications. Like if you're United Airlines, which we'll talk about in just a minute, if you're focused on your ticketing systems or your travel ready center in COVID, like those are your business differentiating applications. Those are the critical applications. So you really want to start modernizing those as critical as soon as possible and have a zero-focused approach on those. Because if you do those right, they will yield the most customer impact. They will yield call it the most amount of flexibility in which you can change the customer experience. And so modernization is going to be key. And then roughly 10% is retire. If you do an assessment of your IT portfolio, I guarantee that there's going to be stuff that people don't even know about. And you ask the question, and suddenly it's like, well, we've always been doing it this way. Or, there's this individual that manages this department, I don't know. And so we see a lot of tribal knowledge, we see a lot of silos, we see a lot of different challenges. And suddenly if you're relooking or redesigning the application, you can almost retire 10% of your IT portfolio. These are obviously average numbers that depending on your environment, your situation, it could change. But the key takeaway for this slide is don't boil the ocean. Look at which ones you want to modernize, which ones you just want to lift and shift, which ones have better alternatives offered, and you can just go with a SaaS version. And so optimizing your IT portfolio is going to be critical. Now, we at AWS offer a wide variety of tools in which you can design a strong IT portfolio strategy. One of those tools is our own AWS Prescriptive Guidance, or APG. It's a free resource available. You can literally go online, download the 7+ strategies, 50+ guides, and close to 250 different patterns. These are specific to certain industries, segments, and specific to certain use cases. So the advantage is, irrespective of what your role is or where your organization is in your maturity to moving to the cloud, you can actually find a strategy that's already sort of built out. This has been developed by industry experts along with AWS experts. And so we've really taken those Lego blocks and created those business outcome focused goals. And so APG is a great tool for you to leverage, again, a free resource that helps you optimize and build the right IT portfolio strategy. Another way to think about this is, use both patterns. Like you want to use migrations as well as modernization. And so the way to read this chart without looking at call it the complex literature at the bottom, if you're running your own infrastructure, that's the bar in purple, right? That's a standard on-prem infrastructure that you're managing. And people always forget to include other costs. For example, if you're running a specific infrastructure, they only look at, call it the cost of buying a server. Well, that's not what it is. It's the server, it's the storage, it's the people that are managing it, it's call it like the complexity of training them, equipping them. All of those things are part of your unit costs. And then as you move to the cloud, so that's the orange bars, you'll immediately start seeing benefits. So even if you just do a simple lift and shift, you'll see cost benefits. But as you start optimizing and improving and right-sizing, that's when you start to see more and more benefits. And so your costs go down. Actually, like if you go to Elasticsearch or you go to more and more focused on serverless architecture, which is all the way to the right, you can see a pretty significant cost saving. The arrow line in blue is agility. And so as you get more and more towards native serverless focused architecture, which is really event driven, then you can be more and more agile. And that's where you want to be. And so, one thing that our customers always talk to us about is a lot of stuff that we mentioned, just from the start. Like, how do we package that? It's a lot of content. It's a lot of information. How do we think about that? And so one of the advantages is that we've taken all those guidances and learnings, all the stuff that I mentioned up till now, and we've packaged it in a structured program called the AWS Migration Acceleration Program, or MAP. It is our flagship program, and any customer that's doing a migration or modernization of any size can actually benefit from it. These are 6 dimensions that we look at helping our customers, all the way from frameworks and methodology and best practices, tooling and automation that'll help you automate many of the tasks that you can simply just figure out There's going to be patterns, and there's going to be different types of automations. We have a huge number of vetted partners that I'll talk about very quickly, but these are partners that you can trust on. We've already curated them. They have demonstrated the expertise. We have our own AWS professional services that we work with to focus and build industry expertise and make sure that we can give you the right strategies. Then obviously a lot of focus on training, because at the end of the day, we want all of you to own your own transformations, and helping you and equipping you and your teams and your people is our topmost priority. And so training and enabling our customers and partners is critical. And finally, we have our own investments as well, because we are committed to your journey as well. And so AWS offers a wide variety of investments to make sure that we can help with your transformation journey too. Because again, we get it that some of these transformation projects are large, complex, they're hard, and while you're doing those, you're still managing your own business, right? You're still running your day-to-day operations. And so we know that these investments definitely help. And the best thing about the Migration Acceleration Program is that we use this time-tested structure approach. It's literally a 3-phase, clear milestone-focused project. The first phase is what we call assess. This is where AWS experts work with you to understand, discover your business applications, your IT applications, understand your total cost analysis report, have briefings and workshops, and do all the different types of assessments. And so you get a very good sense of your organizational readiness. You get a very good sense of the cost, different types of costs that you're having, and then you also get a good sense of where to go forward. Then the next phase is mobilize. This is all about building early muscle, learning by doing. So if you remember in the guidance phase that I mentioned, build that momentum, this is mobilize. In mobilize stage, what we do is we work with you to build a detailed plan. We have many different tools that you can use. We create a foundational landing zone, so you have that sort of security and compliance posture built out. You have a strong operating model built out that includes security, and then you also have a good sense of how you're going to leverage your skills and center of excellence if you choose to do. And then finally, it's all about repeat, rinse, and scale. So you have a good sense of your business case. You have a good sense of actually starting, learning, and then building that early muscle. And then it's all about rinse and repeat it for all your different applications. And so you operate it, you constantly optimize it, and then you modernize your critical business applications. And one of the tools that we also leverage is called experience-based acceleration. And so given our unique vantage point, we have a really good insight into all different industries. And so we offer this, call it like a hands-on immersive workshop in which people can actually very quickly, using expertise and using, call it very structured workshops, focus on identifying the blockers. So for example, you may have agility figured out, so you're not worried about product development, but you're worried about security. Well, you could actually do an experience-based acceleration just on security, because you want to de-risk security. Other customers might say, I think security and governance is not an issue, but what I really struggle with is how I'm going to retrain tens of thousands of people. And so you can actually do an experience-based acceleration workshop just for retraining those people. And so we're able to very, very quickly move fast because we've packaged these learnings and these guidances in this program called experience-based acceleration. I would now like to hand it over to Krishna Srinivasan from United Airlines to talk about their journey. Krishna.
Thanks, Faraz. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Krishna Srinivasan, Director at United Airlines, responsible for enterprise architecture, cloud DevOps practice, for operations technologies, and corporate systems. Another responsibility for me is to tailor the AWS MAP program for United needs. So at United, our mission every day has been to unite the world by connecting people to the moments that matter. Our mission every day is to be as diverse as the cities and countries that we fly into. It's also to celebrate the people and the communities we serve by committing to sustainability and environment. This shared purpose and value is what drives us to be the exceptional airline, not only for our employees, but also for our customers and everyone that we serve. And how are we doing this? 86,000 passionate, proud, talented employees working hard every day, getting our passengers into one of the 1,300 aircrafts we have, ranging from regional jets operated by our partners to the long-range wide bodies, safely flying them to one of the 332 destinations across 5 continents. In 2021 alone, we carried more than 36 million passengers, and this year, we are already on a path for surpassing that number. I know most of you would have flown in for being at this event, for being at this moment. And by show of hands, how many of you love to have a stress-free travel experience? It's almost everyone here. And that's exactly what we have made it happen at United using technology. Often our customers' journey begin on our digital channels, either on our easy-to-use.com or our award-winning mobile app. Every day, there are about 3 million passengers, customers, that are shopping for their flights in one of these digital channels and booking their travel. 65 million of them are using it on the day of travel or close in for checking into their flights, for checking their bags, for pre-ordering their onboard meals, and also completing any travel requirements. At the airport, if they need to talk to a customer agent, they don't have to stand in line anymore. They can do so by scanning a QR code or right from their mobile app from their seat. At the gates, they are greeted by our reimagined displays that are very personalized to the time of the day, the flight, the destination, the type of traveler, to give them the right info that they need. While on board, it's not only our pilots that can communicate with our ground crew, our customers can chat with our customer service agents for any support that they need, inquiring about their connecting flight or their return trip or about their future travel. Throughout their journey, the mobile app and our notification platforms become their travel assistant, sending them reminders, getting them ready for the travel, helping them complete the requirements, the travel requirements, informing about their bag status, and also letting them know when to board their aircraft. And most importantly, it will notify them if we are holding their flight, their connecting flight, just for them, so that they don't have to worry about making the tight connection. So all of these tools and our commitment to communicate timely and clearly to the customers is what enables us to offer the stress-free travel that you all want, you all love. So to keep this technology edge, which differentiates us from the rest, and also to continue innovating with focus on customer experience and employee experience, so we kicked off a major transformation in 2018-2019 timeframe, initiating migrating all of our on-prem workloads to the cloud, and also adopting a cloud-first approach for any new capabilities we were going to build. Once we made the decision to move to AWS as our cloud service provider, we needed a proven method. We need something tailored to United tech stack and also to achieve our business outcomes. So we didn't waste any time. We quickly turned to the AWS MAP program and tapped into all of the resources that it had to offer. We did immersive sessions, workshops, discoveries to determine our readiness and to define our migration and modernization strategy. So we built the foundational blocks incorporating our engineering and security requirements, setting the stage for this migration. We created training plans to start growing the cloud skills within our teams. We tapped into the APN network for the partners to help pilot moving these workloads to the cloud. Iterating on this and guided by the best practices, we started creating the playbook, the patterns, the frameworks that can help us the migration and the modernization. In 2020, so when the world was hit with the pandemic, we were hit the hardest. Our industry was hit the hardest. Our daily flights went down from 5,000 to 1,000. The passenger volume dropped to 2%. There were days we had more number of pilots on our flights than the passengers we flew. As you can imagine, all of the project resources, funding, everything came to a complete halt. The travel environment has drastically changed, for which we didn't have any playbooks. So with the learnings and practice from the MAP program, we quickly changed into a mode, what we call scrappy. By the way, scrappy is a real word. It means being resourceful and doing the best with what you have. So we didn't want the crisis to go to waste. Using the MAP investments, the partners from the APN network, the dedicated technical guidance from AWS, we continued migrating our critical workloads to the cloud, taking advantage of the reduced operation and the low passenger loads. And we knew we needed these solutions, these workloads to be ready to scale when the travel demand was going to return. Right? So as the travel environment was changing, we also had to quickly respond to the new requirements, the COVID requirements, the travel regulations that were being imposed by countries all around the world. So we had to quickly respond to that. So in collaboration with AWS, so we started churning out solutions meeting the customer needs. We built the travel-ready center, which could keep our customers informed of all of the requirements at the time and help them completing it to getting their travel pre-approved for the departure. So we used the native services and machine learning models to build the solution. So we use S3 to collect these documents, the vaccine cards, the health forms, the entry forms, and categorize them in DynamoDB, running TextRact and SageMaker models for parsing and validating them. Since second quarter of last year, we collected about 19 million documents, and 75% of them have been approved automatically through automation. And this has enabled our customers to zip through their way at the airport to the aircraft seat stress-free, and also freed up the time for our agents in focusing on the departure activities. So when we had to pivot from high engagement interactions to a no-touch or a low-touch interactions, so we started doing POC with our agent on demand solution. Within 4 weeks, we got that activated at our Chicago airport, where customers would be able to video chat via WebRTC with our airport agents to get assistance from a distance. So we continued on the touchless journey and quickly churned out the backdrop shortcut module through which passengers could do a self-service of dropping off their bags by scanning their boarding pass and completing an ID check without having to interact with any agents. Similarly, on the operations front, we continued innovating, going after cost savings and productivity gains. So one focus area for us was the ground equipment, tracking the ground equipment. So these are the tugs, tractors, the ground power unit that you see at the airport, in the ramp. So we have millions of dollars locked in these assets, and then millions of dollars we spend every year buying newer ones, because we cannot find where they are, like once they get put in certain position. So we use the IoT core services, and with a partner helped out by AWS, we built these sensors, telemetry sensors, meeting the UA requirements, United requirements, as well as the FAA requirements, because we got to get them certified to be put on the aircraft. So we installed 20,000 sensors on our assets, which are streaming data through the edge computing and getting the data ingested at the rate of 28 gigs per minute. This data is getting enriched with our airline data, and then we created a visual to provide insights on where these equipments were, what are the tasks that they are doing, their health, and where they need to be positioned. We enhanced it to run SageMaker model to optimize the route these equipments can take so that they are positioned for the next assignment. So this saved us about $120 million from having to buy additional equipment, and about 1.3 million personal hours that we would have spent looking for these equipments. So another migration modernization success story is the bag manager and the reroute engine, which is also completely built on AWS. Using Amazon MQ, using Glue and MSK to integrate high volume, real-time transactional data from disparate systems, tracking the bag itineraries to make sure that they are connected with the passengers. So even in case of they get separated, the reroute engine models will run to find the best option to connecting these bags with the customers. So since its launch, so we have reconnected about 8 million bags with the passengers and saved about 120,000 hours that we would have spent in locating these bags and manually dispatching them to the customers. So all of the blueprints, the patterns, is what we leveraged for quickly churning out these solutions and at very low cost and achieving the business outcome that we were going after. So what's next? So it's United Next, our growth plan, investing in our mainline aircrafts and interiors. So we have the biggest order in United's history for about 270 aircrafts that we are bringing in over the next 2 years. To put it in another perspective, we are going to get delivered an aircraft every 3 days. So we are going to be hiring 51,000 employees and increasing our flight schedule by 50%. That will make us the biggest airline in the world. But if you look around, the airports we fly into, the cities we serve, the gates, the number of gates, the runways, they're not going to grow at this rate. So how are we going to do this? So we are going to let technology lead the way. So we are going to accelerate our migration to the cloud and modernizing our legacy tech so that they are ready to scale as the airline continues to grow. So we're going to achieve operational excellence by engineering for resiliency, because some of these disruptions in today's world, smaller impact disruptions, will be magnified to be a bigger disruption for us with more number of customers, more number of flights in the system. So we are going to continue growing our AI ML farm and building the next gen capability, analytics capability, to run a more predictive and optimal airline. And all of this with AWS partnership and using the MAP program. So we have a new advertising campaign going on at United called Good Leads the Way. It's highlighting all of the stories all around the airline about the little things, the big things that we do towards caring for our customers, uniting the world, and taking them to the moments that matter the most. We have been writing stories, highlighting all of this in many areas: sustainability, customer experience, customer service, diversity. And now we are getting ready to write the next story in the digital area of all the work that's going to go towards getting us ready for United Next. And in this story, we'll have United and AWS as the heroes. Thank you very much. Back to you, Faraz.
Thank you so much, Krishna. There is a funny thing that I was talking with my wife that we're gonna do this presentation with United, and she said, what's this gonna be about? And I said, stress-free travel. And she said, doesn't that mean traveling without kids? Some people, I know that's exactly what it means, but I personally am super excited and glad for partners like Krishna and United. And so one of the things that we constantly get is, well, what's the secret sauce, right? We heard some amazing things that United's doing, that GE, Samsung, and so many others. And so the quick answer, short and sweet answer is, we have the tooling, we have the automation, we have the right resources, we have the right support that will, let's just say, help you address the key blockers. That's the big thing. And so one of these tools is migration readiness assessment. We really engage with our teams and our experts to help build you a plan that you can align on across all the key different dimensions: business, value, people, governance, security, platform, operations. And so once you do this migration readiness assessment, you get an objective score, call it your organization's health and readiness, that you can then take and understand what will it take to actually do a transformation. And we're constantly investing in removing barriers and making sure that we can help you remove any type of blockers that will hinder your transformation. One example is the AWS Application Migration Service. This is a service that helps you automate migration and modernization of your workloads. And again, it's a free service that you can use to make sure that you can automate that transformation. And it is just one of the many, many different services. In fact, across all the different stages, we have different types of automation, different types of toolings, both offered from AWS as well as our partners as well. And so wherever it makes sense, we know that customers have their own choice of partners. And so we want to work with those best-in-class partners to make sure that we can constantly remove those barriers. One great example is the Amazon AWS Migration Hub Refactor spaces. We know modernization is even way more complex than simple migrations. And so if you're doing a multi-account modernization, that's a really complex application, then using Migration Hub Refactor spaces, you could literally modernize these applications in days instead of the months that it would typically take. And finally, and probably one of the most important, is we believe that partners are key to transformation success. We know our partners have a wide variety of expertise, be it industry or domain expertise, be it migration or modernization expertise. And so we created this AWS migration competency for partners. And I'm excited to announce that we've got more than 247 partners enrolled. That means these are partners that have already been curated, they've already been vetted, we know they can deliver, and so you as our customers can simply just pick a partner that has already those competencies, and you can simply just leverage them to forward your transformation goals. So bringing it all together, the question I get is, well, okay, I understand all that, but where do we start, or more importantly, how do we start? And so our guidance is, it's really around these two things. You have to understand the business case for your transformation. Understand what are your main business drivers, what does the return look like, what are those right goals, what are those outcomes that you're driving towards. And then make sure that you fully understand and have a good grasp of your current state, because without that, you would not be able to succeed. Understanding both from a people and process and technology point of view, as well as some of your external environments, is going to be super critical. But the key takeaway is get started now, learn by doing. Instead of just spending time on designing and analyzing, you can actually build momentum and do rapid POCs, do rapid prototypes, and do things at a smaller scale, and then you can rinse and repeat. And so we've got tons and tons of resources where you can learn more. All of these resources are available on the website as well, but these are some of the few that I've highlighted. So make sure you can, AWS reInvent is primarily a learning conference. So I highly invite all of you to definitely take a look at these resources. They're all available online as well. Finally, one key takeaway that I want all of you to go away with is, AWS is a very unique vantage point. Like, we're honored, we're very grateful to our customers that we've been able to work with to understand what works and what doesn't work. And so we've really packaged all of that into this Migration Acceleration Program, or MAP, which is, again, we partner with you to make sure that your transformation outcomes, your goals are successful, and this is really how you can achieve your business outcomes. Thank you. It's been a pleasure.